When I think of Oklahoma State quarterbacks, I think of guys such as Brandon Weeden, Mason Rudolph, and more recently, Spencer Sanders. There is one player who came into the program just a couple of years ago who had a higher ceiling than any of them in my opinion. He was a superstar from California, had offers from big-time programs all around the country, and when he played, it just looked like he had that it factor and was someone who could take the Cowboys program to the next level. Unfortunately, it seemed like the Oklahoma State coaching staff had other ideas, and with Sanders returning for another year, we saw this player leave the program. I think he's going to make a tremendous impact at the next school he is at, but in today's video, I want to talk about who this player is, his journey and career so far, and what went wrong for him at Oklahoma State, and why he didn't end up getting that starting job. So, without further ado, let's just get started. So you're probably wondering who the subject of today's video is, and it is none other than former Oklahoma State and current Nevada quarterback Shane Illingworth. He is one of my favorite young quarterbacks in college football, but in order to understand who he is, we need to go back in time. Shane Illingworth was a player from Southern California, and he looked like a surfer. He had blonde hair and tattoos, so some wondered how a California kid would end up in Oklahoma. Fun fact, he comes from a place that is actually pretty similar to Stillwater. He grew up in a small city called Norco, California, which is a western city located in Southern California. His nickname is Horsetown, USA, as his high school football coach said, quote, "It's about as rural as you're gonna find in Southern California." The high school's mascot was a cowboy, but Shane had Oklahoma roots as well. He said, quote, "I've been there since I was a little boy. I've been there more than 20 times probably. Oklahoma is a second home." So we now know he had Oklahoma culture, but how did he do with football and how did he blow up? Well, he always played quarterback and loved the game, but he wasn't a star right away in high school. He originally went to Centennial High School in Corona, but his coach left, so he transferred to Villa Park. That was located about an hour and a half west, and after splitting time with another player as a sophomore, he decided to transfer for a third time. He landed at Norco High School, and coaches knew right away that he was a big-time player. His head coach said, quote, "When asked when they knew he'd be a Power 5 player, the coach said the day he walked in the door." Fun fact, some other alums of Norco include former Stanford running back Toby Gerhart and current USC and former Oregon running back Travis Dye. Shane had potential to be as good or better than those two though. As a junior, Illingworth threw the ball for 2,739 yards with 29 touchdowns and only 7 picks. He won a lot of games and filled the stands, and that would continue as a senior. He was a national name at that time, and he got even bigger after he threw 7 touchdowns in one game. To finish his senior year, he threw for 3,081 yards and 40 touchdowns with only 2 picks. Not only could the guy sling the rock and score points, but he also didn't turn it over. He was also 6'6", won 8 games, and electrified crowds. Schools from all over the country wanted him, so where would he go to college? His uncle had an opinion and actually made it pretty clear to Shane at the beginning. He said, quote, "There's 2 schools I think you do very well at. That's Mike Leach's offense at Washington State, and the other one, you're a Mason Rudolph clone, Oklahoma State." With his Oklahoma roots, he decided he was going to visit both Stillwater and Fayetteville. He almost didn't want to visit Arkansas after the visit because it went so well. He was pretty much sold to be a Cowboy after the visit there, as he said, quote, "It was fun just to see how the coaching staff coaches you and tries to make you better and how they critique you. It was a fun experience for me. That was my first time throwing under the lights at Boone Pickens Stadium, and that was pretty fun. It was honestly a really good week." Both him and his parents traveled around Stillwater that weekend and explored some of the local hotspots and restaurants, and he said everyone was friendly and welcoming, which left a very strong impression on the family, but now he would just need an offer. Once he did get offered by Gundy and the staff, he committed to Oklahoma State over Arizona, Arizona State, Arkansas, Missouri, and Oregon State. He compared himself to a former Cowboy legend, Mason Rudolph. Illingworth said, quote, "Obviously Mason is his own player and we have our different traits, but as far as deep ball accuracy and deep ball mentality, I think we both want the home run." Illingworth would become the first Norco player to be selected to the Under Armour All-American game, and he was a blue chip recruit. According to 24/7 Sports, he was a 4-star player, the number 6 quarterback, and the 164th best player in the class of 2020. Oklahoma State doesn't usually sign quarterbacks of that magnitude, so Illingworth was going to be a big deal, and you just have to wait probably a year or 2 before he would play. How would it go? Let's take a look. When Shane would arrive at Oklahoma State, he'd have a lot of hype, and he'd eventually earn the backup job to Spencer Sanders. His number would be called a lot sooner than he thought, though. Because of everything that went on in the world, the Big 12 got a later start to the season, and they got an opportunity to schedule one non-conference game. This would come against Tulsa. In that game, Spencer Sanders would get injured as they were losing, and Illingworth would be thrown in with the Sharks. It was time for his number to be called, and their star wide receiver, Tylan Wallace, was never worried at all. He said, quote, "Once the coaches told me Shane was coming in, he had the utmost confidence. He didn't look like a scared freshman. He believed in himself, and he believed in us. He'd eventually lead him to a win over the Golden Hurricane, who actually had a pretty good year last year. The following week, he'd get an opportunity to play a lot against West Virginia as he'd go 15 of 21 for 139 yards. Not the best game in the world, but it was also his first time playing a lot of reps. He'd make his first career start the following week against Kansas, and in that game, he would show the kind of flash he had. He went 17 of 23 for 265 yards with 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. Illingworth could stretch the field, he could make plays, and he could win games. Unfortunately for him though, Spencer Sanders would return, and he would sit on the pine for the remainder of his freshman year. Mike Gundy had this to say about his freshman quarterback. Quote, "For a true freshman being out there this year, he played okay. There's times he made mistakes, but there's times that he did make some big plays. All that's going to take time. The guy is young, and we found a way to win, and that's what's important right now." So looking ahead to the 2021 season, Oklahoma State had a decent amount of hype. They brought in Utah State transfer Jalen Warren at running back, and they have one of the top returning defenses in the country. This would lead to a breakout season. Except Illingworth would barely get to be a part of this. He would get to play against Missouri State, where he threw for 315 yards and a touchdown, but that was really just about it. He'd once again play against Kansas, where he threw for 2 scores in garbage time, but those were the only 2 opportunities he had, and he watched as Sanders led the team to the Big 12 championship, a bedlam win, and then he watched as they fell 2 inches away from making the playoff. Obviously, this was great for him, and I'm sure he was super happy for the team's success. Except, we got some bad news for him. Spencer Sanders decided to use his extra year, and he will be returning for the 2022 college football season. In my eyes, I wish this would not have happened, as I really wanted to see what Illingworth would do in 2022. With that train of thought, Illingworth decided to enter the transfer portal and find a new school. He saw that he wasn't going to play, and already 3 years into his career, he didn't want to be on the bench for that long. I completely understood it, and he'd have plenty of schools that wanted his talents. Eventually, he would settle by going down a level and transfer to Nevada. The Wolfpack had just lost their head coach Jay Norvell to Colorado State, so they will be in a little bit of rebuild mode, but the opportunity for Illingworth to win the starting job is there. There should be 4 other quarterbacks in that quarterback room, but he should have no issue winning that job, and I think he's going to be one of those quarterbacks that absolutely tears it up at this level. He'll have big shoes to fill as he will be replacing Carson Strong, but in terms of what went wrong for Illingworth, he just never got the opportunity there, and the whole COVID year rule messed him up. That is one of my gripes with the rule, as it has really stunted the growth of a lot of younger players, and we'll never get to see what these kids could have done. I'm obviously excited to see what he's going to do at Nevada, but he had the opportunity to play at the highest level in the Big 12 and play in big nationally televised games in front of much bigger crowds. Either way though, he did what is best for him, and now he's going to get his opportunity. What do you guys think though? If you're an Oklahoma State fan, what do you think of this year's quarterback room? What do you think of Shane Illingworth? And what player or topic should I take a look at in my next video? Be sure to let me know down below, smash that like button if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.